Chapter 7 The Three Formulas. The ancient sages of Oriental lands were wont to remind their pupils that the practical rules and methods of manifesting or expressing personal power could be reduced to three fundamental and basic rules or formulas. The experience of modern investigators of the subject tend to corroborate this conclusion of their ancient brothers. Therefore, we have thought it well to present this phase of our subject to you in the form of these three ancient formulas, adapted to modern needs and expressed in the plain terms of the Western world rather than in the verbal imagery of Eastern lands. The three formulas of personal power are as follows. Number 1, the formula of idealization. Number 2, the formula of affirmation. And number 3, the formula of actualization. A formula is a prescribed set, rule, or method of application. You are asked to consider carefully the description and instruction concerning these three several formulas, as hereinafter presented to you in detail under their respective headings and categories. The formula of idealization. Idealization consists of the act or process of creating the ideal mental form, pattern, design, or mold of that which you desire to materialize in objective reality. Ideals clearly defined in outline and sharply defined in configuration, well energized and vitalized by an inflow of willpower, tend to materialize themselves in objective reality by means of a. Building up a corresponding ethereal pattern, outline, design, or mold around which is deposited the substance of materialization, and b. by means of attracting to themselves the persons, conditions, things, and environmental factors which aid in the process of materialization. Materialization is the act or process of investing with material form or material properties that which has previously existed in idealized form or condition. In the formula of idealization, there is embodied a wonderful truth concerning the manifestation of nature's finer forces, which truth was well known to the ancient esoteric schools of philosophy, and which has been accepted in one form or another by the advanced students and teachers of the ancient wisdom or esoteric doctrines of all lands and in all times. Our Western science, however, has heretofore been disposed to treat all such teachings as idle superstition or occult nonsense. The wonderful discoveries of science during the past 20 years, however, have tended to break down the barrier between esoteric science and exoteric science, and at the present time many careful advanced thinkers in the ranks of modern science are disposed to manifest a far greater tolerance toward these ancient teachings, and are furnishing explanations along the lines of modern scientific discoveries which seek to account for the phenomena explained in other terms by the ancient thinkers. In the meantime, however, thousands of persons are making wonderful demonstrations of these truths in their everyday life and work, and consequently are not much concerned over what modern science may or may not have to say concerning the explanation in modern scientific terms. They are interested far more in the fact that the thing works, and in learning just how it works, than in theories attempting to explain why it works, if it does work, as it is claimed. The gist of the ancient and modern teachings upon the subject of the workings of the process of idealization may be stated as follows. A strongly projected thought form, or idealized form, vitalized and energized by willpower, tends to attract to itself and to build around itself its materialized counterpart or material representation. In this way, the ideal becomes real, in the sense of objective and material existence and condition, and idealization is transformed into materialization. It is not our intention nor our purpose in this book to go into technical details, nor to enter into academic discussions concerning the processes performed by nature in working these wonders. To attempt this would be to enter into an endless discussion and explanation which would take the whole instruction out of the region of practical, popular examination and consideration. But nevertheless, we wish to mention briefly the general principles involved, and thus to give you a hint as to the direction in which the technical explanation of these phenomena lies, and where it may be sought if one so desires to pursue the inquiry further in that direction. A leading writer upon the teaching of an ancient and modern magic says, the central doctrine of magic may be summed up as follows. 1. That a supersensible and real cosmic medium exists, which interpenetrates, influences, and supports the tangible and apparent world, and which is amenable to the categories of both philosophy and physics. This cosmic medium, or astral light, is first cousin to the intangible ether of the physicists. From the earliest times, occult philosophy has proclaimed its knowledge of this medium, always describing it as a scientific fact, outside the range of our normal senses, but susceptible of verification by the trained powers of the initiate. It was the first object of occult education and initiation to actualize this supersensible plane of experience, teaching the student how to impose upon its forces the directive forces of his own thought and will, as easily as he might impose these upon the material things of sense. Number 2, that there is an established analogy and equilibrium between the material and supermaterial world. This doctrine of analogy or correspondence between the seen and the unseen worlds is the basis of the speculation of occultism. As above, so below, as below, so above. The first axiom of Hermes Trismegistus is also agreeable to all Platonists. Says Eliphas Levi, analogy is the last word of science and the first word of faith. It is the key of all the secrets of nature. It was admitted into the system of the Kabbalah, and Bohm and Swedenborg gladly availed themselves to its method in presenting their intuitions to the world. Sir Thomas Browne said, "The severe school shall never laugh me out of the philosophy of Hermes, and this visible world is but a picture of the invisible, wherein, as in portrait, things are not in material shapes, but in ideal shapes, which picture some material substance in that invisible framework." Number 3, that the equilibrium between the material and the supermaterial worlds may be controlled by the disciplined thought and will of man. In its essence, magical initiation is a traditional form of mental discipline, strengthening and focusing the will. Says Eliphas Levi, just as the powers of the body can be developed to an amazing extent by athletics, so may the powers of the soul be likewise developed. Learn how to will. This power of the will is daily gaining recognition in the camps of science as the chief factors in religion and in therapeutics of the healing of the body and the healing of the soul. For our most advanced theories on these subjects are little more known than the old wine in the new bottles. Modern philosophy, supported to a great extent by the facts of science, explains some of the asserted facts of magic, as just stated by the theory of unconscious will and unconscious idea as cosmic principles, the extension of this conception to man on the principle of analogy, as above, so below, as below, so above, giving the key to the secret of the creative activities of man. In short, it implicitly asserts that man, the microcosm, may proceed to create by means of the deliberate employment of the same methods and processes, and through the same principles as those employed by nature, or the cosmos, the macrocosm. And as we shall show you in the following paragraphs, modern science postulates the existence of a counterpart of the cosmic medium, or astral light, of the occultists. Modern science in the conception of the universal ether asserts the existence of an immaterial, imponderable substance similar to that postulated by the ancient Hindu philosophers under the name of the Akasha, or Prakriti. This universal ether is held by modern science to pervade all space and to be the ultimate state or condition of all materiality. Matter is held to be a derivative product of it, and to be destined eventually to return to it. Stockwell says, "The ether is coming to be apprehended as immaterial, superphysical substance, filling all space, carrying in its infinite throbbing bosom the specks of aggregated dynamic force called worlds. It embodies the ultimate spiritual principle and represents the unity of those forces and energies from which spring, as their source, all phenomena, physical, mental, and spiritual, as they are known to us. Bigelow speaks of the extraordinary entity upon which inferential existence the lines of modern science thought seem to converge, the interstellar ether, which seems likely to prove the ultimate form of matter, out of which everything comes and to which everything must eventually return. The ether is unconditioned, an entity of no properties, or more exactly, not an entity at all, but an infinite possibility. So then, if you demand to know what support our formula of idealization has in ancient thought or in modern science, you have it suggested to you in the foregoing. There is this intangible substance which is capable of being worked up into material form by ideation animated by will in the cosmic processes. It is but carrying the idea to its logical conclusion when it is asserted that the I am I, being focalized center of the universal principle of power, may and does possess, in at least some degree, the power to create in the same general way, i.e., by idealization energized and animated by willpower. Idealization, according to the formula, begins with the projection of an ideal form or thought form, clearly defined in outline and sharply defined in configuration, well energized and vitalized by an inflow of willpower. This ideal form or thought form is stated to tend to materialize itself into objective reality by means of A, building up the corresponding ethereal pattern, outline, design, or mold around which is deposited the substance of materialization, and B, by means of attracting to itself the persons, conditions, things, and environmental factors which aid in the process of materialization. You may project this ideal image or thought form by first creating a clear idea or mental picture, employing both thought and imagination in the process. You will find yourself aided in this by picturing the ideal image or thought form as superimposed upon the ethereal substance, whereupon it begins at once to crystallize into more substantial structure and body. You may be helped in this conception by employing the symbol of the projection of a picture by the familiar magic lantern. Think of your ideal image or thought form as the picture painted or photographed on the lantern slide, the ethereal substance as being the screen or sheet upon which the picture is thrown or projected, your attention being the lens of the lantern or projecting apparatus which focalizes and concentrates the strength of the light, your will as the light which projects the picture, your desire as the fuel or energy which causes the light of will to burn. The ideal image or thought form must be kept energized by willpower, as you have been told in the formula. This is a very important factor in the process. Be the ideal image or thought form ever so clear, sharp, and strong, it will lack energy and power unless it is fed and kept supplied by the proper flow of willpower. In order to so supply it, you should keep your mind on those features of the picture which make it desirable and wished for by you. You should frequently picture in your mind the pleasure, content, and satisfaction which will be yours when the ideal is materialized, when the dream comes true. By thus arousing desire, you will keep flowing to the ideal image or thought form that energy, strength, and vitality of the will, which it requires in order to grow and unfold itself. You will find that the power of your will, employed in this way, will be stimulated and strengthened by means of the cultivation of a strong craving, longing, hungry, thirsting desire for the materialization of your ideal image or thought form. By craving is meant urgently longing for, eagerly and strongly desiring and demanding, passionately longing for and demanding, insatiable longing for, etc. The longer and more persistent and insistent the craving of desire, the greater is the will tension manifested in the ideal image or thought form. The flame of desire must be kept burning brightly in order that the light of will may be sufficient to do its work. Likewise, the will is stimulated to increased and intensified activity by the presence of the mental state of hope, faith, belief. In short, confident expectation of the successful outcome of the attempt and task. Faith power is an important element of ideative and volitional power. It must not be overlooked in your practice of personal power. The formula also states that the ideal image or thought form must be clear in outline and in configuration, clearly defined in both respects. Inasmuch as the ideal image or thought form is the pattern or framework around which your materialization is to be effected or built, it follows that the best effects are obtained when that pattern or framework is clearly defined and sharply outlined. The materialization proceeds to manifest along the lines of the idealization and cannot be expected to be better than in its pattern and mold. It is realized by us, of course, that at least at first you are not likely to find it easy to create or to build up a perfect, complete, ideal image or thought form of that which you wish to become materialized. Moreover, we realize that you may wish to fill in the outlines of your pattern or framework, or to add some new details or features to make some improvements upon the original plan as you proceed. These things are all possible under this method of idealization. In fact, nearly everyone who accomplishes results by its means proceeds in just this way, from the very nature of the case. The principle of idealization is not affected by such additions or changes. The ideal image or thought form is not rigid and fixed, but rather is flexible and capable of being remolded, reshaped, altered, remodeled, and added to as you proceed. Even nature proceeds according to evolution, trial, experiment, adaptation, improvement, and combination. So thus may you also proceed. The best general rule for the practical performance of the projecting process of idealization is as follows. Acquire the faculty of forming the clearest possible outline of the things and conditions you wish to materialize into objective form. If you cannot at first fill in the details of your projected ideal image or thought form, you should at least build and draw strong, clear, firm, general outlines. And then, as you proceed with your idealization and its materialization, you may add the missing or minor details, altering, changing, improving, remodeling, and reshaping the ideal pattern or framework. Do not hesitate to begin the process of idealization simply because you cannot at first supply the details of your picture. The general outlines will be enough to start with, but let these be as clear, sharp, and strong as possible. Finally, you should understand that by the term ideal image or thought form, we always mean simply the idea of that which you wish to do, or to be, or to happen, the object of your desire, will, faith, idea, in fact. This object may be a plain, simple, and immediate thing, or again it may be an elaborate, complex, and remote thing, but the general principle remains unchanged, and the general method of applying it is the same. The ideal image or thought form is the form in the seed, which you wish to materialize into the form of the plant, flower, and fruit. The following suggestions may aid you in forming your mental picture. Number 1, idealize the desired things, happenings, or conditions just exactly as if they were existent and active at that particular moment, right here and now before you. Number 2, idealize yourself as you wish to be or to do. Number 3, idealize others as you wish them to be or do. Number 4, idealize happenings as you wish them to occur. Number 5, idealize conditions as you wish them to be. Number 6, idealize your environment as you wish it to be. Number 7, idealize your power, strength, and ability as you wish them to be. Here is the method in a nutshell. Number 1, discover what you crave to be or to do or to have happen. Number 2, form a clear, strong, and a distinct ideal image or thought form of such. Number 3, vitalize and energize this by willpower aroused by desire and stimulated by faith. Number 4, project the ideal image or thought form into the ethereal substance, there to become materialized. Number 5, keep the picture clear, strong, and corrected, up to date in the same way. Number 6, keep it supplied with continuous interest and attention and energized by desire, faith, and willpower. Number 7, Then wait confidently and expectantly its materialization and realization, for lo, your own shall come to you. In the above condensed statement, you have the essence of that which many books have been written to express, many lessons have been given to teach, and which might be expected into many volumes of instruction, committed to memory and repeated often to yourself. The formula of affirmation. Affirmation consists of the act or process of expressing in verbal form in words the statement of the thought or idea of that which you desire to materialize in objective reality. Words are crystallized thought. When an idea is expressed in words, it takes on additional strength and power. The verbal expression of an idea gives to the latter a body and substance which it otherwise lacks. The spoken word was held by ancient occultists to have a mystical and esoteric significance and power. The experience of modern mental science, of various schools of interpretation of the basic principles of its teachings, has served to demonstrate the value of affirmations in securing results of their idealistic thought directed toward practical ends. The human race did very little intelligent or purposive thinking before it invented spoken language. Moreover, the greater and more adequate is the vocabulary of a people or of an individual, the greater is the capacity for clear, definite thought on the part of that people or that individual. This does not mean that the more a person talks or the more words he utters, the deeper is his thought. In fact, the reverse is such proposition is often found to be true. But it is true that the more terms that a person has at his command for use in his thinking, the clearer and more definite will be his thought. Words may be, and often are, employed to disguise or to conceal thoughts, or to conceal the lack of real thoughts and ideas. But without adequate terms, clear and close thinking is impossible. Arnold Bennett says, when a writer conceives an idea, he conceives it in the form of words. That form of words constitutes his style, and it is absolutely governed by the idea. The idea can only exist in words. It can only exist in one form of words. You cannot say exactly the same thing in two different ways. Slightly alter the expression, and you slightly alter the idea. A clear idea is expressed clearly, and a vague idea vaguely. Hazlitt says, not only will an improvement in a thought improve its wording, an improvement in wording will improve the thought. To study clearness of statement is to study means of improving thought. Thus you see, affirmation has for one of its main purposes for strengthening of the thought or idea and the creation of a more clear, distinct, and definite outline of it. You may hold the thought or the thing or condition which you desire to materialize. You may form a strong mental picture of it, but neither the thought nor the picture will possess its full measure of strength or clearness until you embody the thought or idea and describe the picture in formal words. If you will carefully write down in words your thought or idea of the thing or condition which you desire to materialize, and will correct that written statement until you feel that you have reached the limits of your powers of effective verbal expression, you will then find that your thought and idea and your mental picture as well have taken on a new strength, vigor, body, and degree of definiteness and clearness. We may mention in passing, rather for the purpose of a suggestion and of indication of how men's minds in the past have taken hold of this idea of the power of words, that many teachers of the ancient esoteric schools held that all true creative activities have proceeded from the original impulse imparted by words, this being true of the creation of the cosmos and of the creations of man. There was a mystic significance attached to the use of the term the word. Poe refers to this old idea in his essay entitled The Power of Words. The Oriental sages have much to say concerning the power of mystic mantrams to awaken vibrations in the ether and to thereby to cause materialization. The opening paragraphs of the Gospel of John are, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. The same was in the beginning with God. Moreover, reference to the first chapter of Genesis will show that God is pictured by the writer of that book as creating the world in successive stages or by successive steps, by divine fiat or authoritative spoken word, as for instance, and God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. Again, and God said, "Let there be a firmament in the midst of the waters, and let it divide the waters from the waters." And so, on verbal command succeeding verbal command until the work of creation is completed. We shall not pursue this phase of the subject further. The above will serve to indicate the trend of man's thoughts concerning the power of the spoken word. There is no set rule or form for the expression of the verbal affirmation. If you will state in words positively and definitely that which is involved in your idea, and which you have sought to picture mentally in the process of idealization, you will be performing efficiently the process of affirmation. There is no special virtue in any particular combination of words, however, so do not fall into the superstitious fallacy concerning verbal charms, etc., nor strive to invent mantras. The virtue in affirmations lies in the thought or idea back of the words, the spirit of the words, rather than their form, and not in any magic or mystical combinations of words or sounds. If the words of your affirmation are clear, definite, and right to the point, they will serve the purpose effectively. Do not become a blind follower of cut and dried forms of affirmations announced by teachers and others claiming authority. Your own forms are just as good as these. They may really be better if they more clearly and effectively express your own thought in the matter. Here, however, is an important point concerning the employment of affirmations. Always make your affirmative statements in the present tense. Do not say so and so will be such and such by and by, but instead speak up boldly and affirm that so and so is such and such right here and now. And in truth, such is the case. You are speaking the word of truth, which transcends time limitations. The so and so is such and such in the idealized form. The materialized form is even now crystallizing itself around it. Also, make your affirmative statements earnestly and positively. Avoid half-hearted or maybe statements, lest only half-hearted and maybe results may materialize for you. Exercise the power of faith. Express the confident expectation. Do not assume the tone of asking a favor. Speak the word of command and demand. You are not a beggar, you are a master. Denials or reversed affirmations are useful at times, particularly when you feel the need of protection and the necessity for clearing away obstacles which hinder your advance. Otherwise, positive affirmation should be employed, constructive rather than destructive. It has well been said that the darkness is more speedily and effectively dispelled by letting in the light than by attempting to shovel out the darkness. As a general rule, it is well to proceed upon this principle. But we are not among those who refuse to see any virtue at all in denials. On the contrary, we advise such method in certain cases, this always to be followed and fortified by positive affirmations. In employing denials or reversed affirmations, you boldly, firmly, and positively deny out of your world of experience the obstacle or obstruction which is impeding your legitimate progress, or the antagonistic influence which is being directed against you. It is marvelous to see how, at such times, these antagonistic or obstructive things and circumstances will disintegrate and dissolve into ineffective nothingness, so far as you yourself are concerned. The following is an example of the general form of denial or reversed affirmation. I deny power and reality to this influence or obstacle. Over me it has no power or influence. For me it has no obstructing power. For my master self, my I am I, it has no practical existence. Accompany this with an idealized mental picture of the obstructing thing disappearing from the scene, leaving the remainder of the picture intact without the presence of the thing which has been denied out of your existence. Then follow up this process with those of idealization and affirmation along constructive lines, i.e., along the lines of the creation and materialization of that which you desire to be manifested and expressed in reality. Finally, always fill your affirmation with feeling, faith, and will. Make it alive with feeling and emotion, desire, craving, and insistent urge. Make it glow with faith. Make it strong with inflow of willpower. Throw will, faith, and feeling into your affirmation as well as into your idealization. Do not fall into the habit of affirming in dead words, repeated parrot-like. Instead, throw yourself into them. Speak with the air of authority as if to those who are in the habit of obeying your commands and of expressing into action your wishes. Do not bluster or rant or rave, but rather cultivate the voice of real strength and authority, calm, well-poised, and confident of itself. If you speak from the I am I consciousness, you will be able to do this effectively. The formula of actualization. Actualization consists of making actual by action that which you desire to materialize in objective reality, and the idea of which is represented in your mental pictures of idealization and in your spoken words of affirmation. In actualization, you make the mental paths which lead to achievement and accomplishment. You also strengthen the idealized framework, pattern, design, or mold of your idealization and give expression and manifestation to your verbal statements of affirmation. The greater your ability to act and act out the faith of realization that is in you, the greater will be your ability to bring about that material realization of that which is now real in idealized form. In actualization, you proceed to exhibit in real action the spirit of that which you have idealized and affirmed. In actualization, as in idealization and affirmation, there is a potent natural law or principle involved. We are not inventing these principles, nor are we claiming any right of discovery of them. On the contrary, we are but applying terms to and describing the operation of certain basic principles of nature's activities which have always existed and always will exist, at least so long as there is a cosmos. The secret of the efficacy of actualization lies in the natural principle under which the measure of available strength is determined by the degree of the use and employment of such strength. In all nature it is found that use determines the supply. The available muscular strength of a man depends materially upon the degree of the previous use, exercise, or employment of his muscles. The man who exercises or employs a certain set of muscles will be found to acquire a marked development of those particular parts of his body, while the man who has not exercised or used these will be found to lack the special development and strength acquired by the first man. In the same way, exercise and employment and use tend greatly to develop and cultivate any of the mental faculties. The increased rate of development of the mental faculty arises not alone by reason of acquaintance and familiarity with the task, but also from the increase of the available power of that faculty, which comes from its use and employment. The power comes in response to the demand and necessity for it, which arises in the course of its use and employment. The rule of nature is to send strength and power to those parts or faculties which are used, employed, and exercised in due measure, and to weaken and atrophy those which are either used to excess or else not employed in due measure. The norm or natural degree of strength depends largely upon the degree of the manifestation of the norm or the reasonable degree of natural expression, employment, use, and exercise. The physical giant and the mental giant each owes his power not alone to natural aptitude and equipment, but also, and in a large measure, to the natural use and exercise of his aptitude and equipment. Without attempting to illustrate the principle at great length, we say to you that if you will proceed to act as if the desired power and strength were gradually flowing into you, then there will come to you such a gradual inflow, and there will be manifested in you a greater capacity for personal power. Act out the part for which you are preparing yourself. Rehearse the part which you are expecting to play in earnest in the drama of life. Acquire the motions, gestures, outward manifestations, inward feelings, viewpoints, outlook, etc. of the individual you desire and expect to be. Train yourself for the part by earnest, patient rehearsal. The process of idealization and affirmation will bring power to the very gates of your individual irrigation channels, but you must actually raise the gates in order to permit the inflow of its power and energy. You must use, employ, and apply its power, its actual work and activity, if you wish this flow to continue. Personal power is given to you for use and not for hoarding. There is a law of use, as well as a law of attraction in nature. Just as the will process is not complete short of actual action, just as idea is not complete until it moves into outward expression, so is your personal power not complete until you have begun to use, employ, manifest, and express it. So do not content yourself merely with idealization and affirmation, but instead get to work and complete the process by actually manifesting and expressing the rays of power which are flowing into you in order to bring about the materialization of that which you desire to manifest in objective form. Do not overdo the expression and manifestation, but do not underdo it. Strive ever to maintain the golden mean, the balance between the two extremes. In poise there is power. Much of the adverse criticism which has been directed toward the followers of the various schools of the new metaphysical movement, under its many names, is based upon the theory that such individuals are mere daydreamers, that they shirk the real tasks of living and refuse to look at the actualities confronting them in everyday life, and instead content themselves with building castles in Spain and indulging in daydreams of what they would like to be and to do and to possess. So far as many persons are concerned, such criticism is merited in some degree, but here the trouble arises not because of the true metaphysical teaching on the subject, but rather because these individuals see but 2/3 of the truth and ignore the remaining 1/3. They are strong in idealization and affirmation, overstressing the latter particularly, but are very weak in actualization. In fact, they often tacitly or expressly deny the need of it. One may dream, in fact, he must do so if he wishes to create and construct. He may affirm his power, he must do so if he wishes to achieve. But he must also manifest into action the ideals and the power possessed by him. He must say, I dare and I do, as well as I can and I will. He must act as well as think, feel, and plan. He must express himself in action as well as impress his thought and will upon the responsive ethereal substance. The word actual is derived from the same root as the terms act, active, or activity. Before a thing becomes actual, it must be the subject of action and activity. Actuality follows activity, and activity results from action, and action from act. Actualization is a necessary factor of realization and materialization. Without it, idealization and affirmation are aborted and are never able to manifest in the world of realization and materialization. So then remember always to transmute the thought and word into action. Otherwise, you are but a mere dreamer of dreams, a speaker of words, and not a doer of deeds. Action is the end and goal of thought and word. Chapter 8. Realizing your ideals. By means of the application of the combined powers of ideative and volition, of thought and will, employed according to the methods of the three formulas of idealization, affirmation, and actualization respectively, you proceed to realize, i.e., to make real, to convert into actual objective existence, that which you have first created an ideal form, i.e., in the form of the ideal image or thought. In other words, by employing these powers according to the said methods, you proceed to materialize your idealized forms. Inasmuch as these idealized forms represent your strongest desires, you are here proceeding to remake your world of experience according to your heart's desire. In addition to the instruction already given you along these lines, and for the purpose of summing up the essential features of the preceding instruction, we shall now present to your attention and consideration the leading principles of the process of realizing your ideals, of materializing that which you have idealized, or creating conditions in accordance with your heart's desire. The essential base. To begin with, you must always proceed from the base, ground and foundation of power, the ultimate principle of power. You must never lose sight of the fact that all the personal power you have had, have now, or ever can have, must have power as its original source and fount. This original source must never be lost sight of by you. The more you recognize and realize that power is your great reservoir and storehouse of power, the closer will be your conscious relation to that original source, and the greater will be your ability to draw upon that great reservoir or storehouse. You must always remember that recognition and realization must always precede manifestation. In the degree of your conscious recognition of power in thought and of your conscious realization of its feeling, so will be the degree of your conscious manifestation of it in action. Students often become so carried away by the wonderful possibilities and the actual manifestations of personal power arising from the application of the principles and methods involving will, ideative energy, force, and power, according to the methods of the three formulas, that in time they tend to forget or to overlook the fundamental fact that all personal power must proceed from power, with a capital P-O-W-E-R. They ignore the source of their supply. This, however, is a grave error, for by proceeding in this manner, you'll tend to close the channel of infinite supply, and thereby to limit, lessen, and restrict the inflow of power from power, with a capital P-O-W-E-R. Such course is akin to that of the car conductor, which allows his trolley pole to become detached from the supply wire, and thereby loses his connection with the power which operates the driving machinery of his car. It would really be better for you to forget to overlook all the rest of this instruction rather than this, its basic and fundamental principle. The focal center. Second only to the recognition, realization, and manifestation of power, with a capital P-O-W-E-R, is the similar recognition, realization, and manifestation of that focalized center of power, which is your I am I, your master self, your real self. This I am I, as we have repeatedly told you, is a focalized center of being and power, created and established by power in its cosmic manifestation. The I am I is to your individual world of experience that which power is to the cosmos. It is the supreme fact of your individual existence, just as power is the supreme fact of all existence. It is the focalized center through which power flows and operates in your individual activities. It is the reflection of the sun of power in the dewdrop of your mental and physical being. You must always think of, picture, and act according to the idea of your I am I as being a central point in your world of experience, around which all the rest moves in circles and passes in review. You are the real thing in the passing show, which passes before you in an ever-changing, ever-proceeding stream, and which is presented to you for your edification, instruction, and experience. You are it in that world of experience, the one thing which you know from actual experience to be real. You are that something or somewhat which would continue to exist even were all that world of experience wiped out of existence, which will remain constant and unaffected so long as it is maintained as a focal point by power, with a capital P-O-W-E-R. You must always keep in mind this fact of your own reality and your place in the world of experience. This consciousness of egohood must be brought to a pivotal and focused point of intense recognition and realization in thought and feeling. The consciousness of your reality and constancy amidst the world of changing things and passing scenes must be acquired by you. It must become a part of your inmost consciousness of thought and feeling. It is the real essence of your practical application of personal power. You must grow to feel that whatever else may change or pass away, you, the I am I, will remain abiding, constant, and identical. You must strive to acquire the consciousness of the philosopher who, being told that the world was coming to an end, calmly replied, "Well, what of it? I can get along without it." The thought of the crash of worlds must not disturb you. You must learn to think and to feel that these things move me not. But remember always that this I am I, which is you, is not the John Smith or the Mary Jones part of you, the part made up of the instruments and machinery of your personal expression and manifestation. It is not to the mere garments of personality that you are ascribing such great facts of being. It is to that which bears those garments for the time being. These incidental trappings of personality are but the things of the impermanent, changing, passing, phenomenal world, which you are now experiencing in consciousness. The I am I is that reality which transcends these phenomenal instruments, machinery, garments, or attachments, which in their aggregate constitute the John Smith or Mary Jones aspect of your individuality. Do not allow yourself to become entangled in consciousness with this outer aspect of personality, free from inner individuality from it in consciousness. Do not allow yourself to become spiritually hidebound by this outer skin of your personality. Do not exchange your birthright of permanent individuality for the mess of pottage of transient personality. You must lay aside forever the erroneous notion that you are a mere worm of the dust, a lowly creature fit only to crawl along on its belly, begging that it may not be trodden upon. You must realize that you are you, a magnificent manifestation and expression of power with a capital P-O-W-E-R. For you, the process of evolution have toiled and labored for many ages. For you, nature has undergone countless labor pains through the ages long period of delivery. For you, time has waited long. Now that you are here in your present state of personal existence, it is your right and duty to express and to manifest the full might and power that is in you, and to move forward fulfilling your manifest destiny. You are you, and you are ready to express yourself to the full measure of your inherent capacities. In all your work, in all your play, in all your activities, physical and mental, carry with you the consciousness that you are you, a center of power in the great cosmic manifestation of power, with a capital P-O-W-E-R. Base upon this consciousness all that you do, all your mental work, all your physical work. Falter not, be strong. Recognize and realize always that you are a focused, focalized, concentrated point of reality, a focal point and center of the presence power of power, with a capital P-O-W-E-R. Recognize and realize that back of you, around you, and in you is power, all the power there is, and all that in the measure that you will allow it to flow freely through you. That will be the measure of your personal power. Learn to affirm the I am I in full consciousness of what the words mean. Mentally picture yourself as that I am I, and then live up to and act out the truth of your being, so expressed in thought, in feeling, and in words. By the careful observance of the foregoing instruction concerning the I am I, conceived as a focalized center of the power of power, and as being the permanent, constant, identical element and factor of your being, you will find yourself unfolding into a greater and far more efficient phase of personal power. You will not only be creating a more definite way, more intensely concentrated and more highly focalized center of manifestation of personal power, the source and real nature of which you have recognized and realized abiding on the higher and hidden planes or levels of your consciousness, your subconsciousness, and your superconsciousness. You will also proceed to the gradual unfoldment of a higher power of knowing or feeling and of doing, by means of the increased efficiency and power of your instruments and machinery of expression. This teaching of the I am I, its powers and its possibilities, is not milk for babes. It is rather nourishing food for strong men and those who wish to become strong. The practical test of truth is, will this make me stronger, better, and more efficient? This teaching will meet the test of truth, for it will assuredly make you stronger, better, and more efficient. It is in accordance with the law of evolution, which law proceeds to manifest on the spiritual and mental planes as well as the physical plane. Fall in line and proceed with the law of cosmic evolution, and the powers of the cosmos will come to your aid, and you will become as one of the elect. If you oppose or run contrary to the law, you will be ruthlessly pressed to the wall and discarded as unfit. In the one case, you are nourished, supported, strengthened, and encouraged by the law. In the other case, you are relentlessly crowded out by its operations. We here quote from the statement of one of the present writers made in a much earlier work from his pen. This statement is quite as true now as when it was written many years ago. If you are a true individual, this teaching is just what you want. This is also true if you are not yet a true individual, but earnestly desire to be one. But if you are a weakling and prefer to remain so, instead of rising and claiming your birthright of strength, your heritage of power, then by all means remain as you are and depart in peace. In that case, you leave these teachings for those of the race who will not sell their birthright of power for the mess of pottage as negative content and sheep-like passivity and docility, but who boldly claim their own and demand their rightful portion. For those strong brothers of yours are the individuals, the true individuals, who are the coming inheritors of the earth. Realizing the ideal body. By the employment of the principles of combined ideation will along the lines of idealization, affirmation, and actualization, you may build or rebuild your physical body along the lines laid out and patterned in your mind. You may make yourself over physically in this way, your degree of successful manifestation depending upon your degree of successful recognition and realization of the principles involved, and upon your degree of the efficient application of those principles. This is no new and strange doctrine. On the contrary, it is being taught and practiced by the many schools of mind cure, mental healing, faith cure, metaphysical healing, etc., which have been so much in public view during the past quarter century. Thousands have been transformed from weak, sick persons into strong, healthy individuals by means of methods similar in general nature to those presented to you in this book. Moreover, by means of systems of physical culture employing at least some of the elements of idealization and the employment of ideation will, many have literally made over their physical bodies, building them up from frail, puny, undeveloped forms into strong, sturdy, efficient, well-developed physical instruments of expression. The general principles involved in the process of realizing the ideal body are those already presented to you. The methods employed are those likewise presented to you in this book. You start with the consciousness that the physical body and all its parts and organs is but the instrument of the I am I, master self or real self, the latter being the focalized center of power, with a capital P-O-W-E-R. The master self assumes control of its physical instrument and machinery and proceeds to build it up according to the highest possible pattern, design, or mold. In doing so, it employs the combined principles of ideation will, the ideal form energized by willpower. It proceeds by idealization or the creation and projection of the ideal image or thought form. It accompanies this by the appropriate affirmation of the idea or thought. It also proceeds to apply the method of actualization by means of which it lives out the idea, acts out the part, and also performs such physical actions, exercises, and methods as may seem appropriate, and observes such basic natural laws of health and physical well-being as are announced by the best thinkers along these lines. Such are the general principles and methods employed in the processes of realizing the ideal body, of materializing into objective reality the perfect, healthy, strong, efficient body pictured in the mind as the ideal form. If you will apply the principles previously announced and explained in the preceding sections of this book, particularly those included in the description of the 3 formulas, and will employ the methods also herein stated and explained carefully and intelligently, adapting them to the special requirements of your individual case, you should be able to manifest to a satisfactory degree the results which you seek. All this will require careful and persistent effort, careful attention, and insistent perseverance. We are not offering you a magic wand by means of the waving of which you may gain in a moment perfect health and perfect physical well-being. But if you will observe the proper methods based upon the sound fundamental principles herein stated, and will manifest definite ideals, insistent desire, confident expectation, persistent determination, and balanced compensation, there is no reason why you should not acquire that which you seek. All this seems work, earnest work, persistent work, but the end is worth all the work which you bestow upon the task. Realizing the ideal mind. What has just been said concerning the process of realizing the ideal body may also be said concerning the process of realizing the ideal mind. By the employment of the general principles of combined ideation will, applied along the lines of idealization, affirmation, and actualization, you may develop and cultivate your mind as a whole, or any of its special faculties or powers, to a high degree or state of efficiency. Here, as in the case of the physical body, the IMI is in control of its instruments and its machinery of expression, and is able to cultivate and develop, train and direct the operation of those instruments or machinery. The IMI, or Master Self, assumes active control of the mental faculties and begins the process of exercising, energizing, stimulating, and generally building up and rendering effective these instruments of its expression. In this work, the IMI calls to its aid the combined powers of ideation, will, and employs the same along the lines of idealization, affirmation, and actualization. All of these processes are familiar to you by reason of their repeated presentation to you in this book. In idealization, the mind, or its special faculties under treatment, is pictured by the ideal image or thought form, as it is desired to become and to be, the ideal kept constantly in mind as a pattern or mold along the lines of which materialization shall proceed. Affirmations or verbal statements tend to crystallize the idea or thought expressed in idealization. It gives body and substance to the idea or thought so pictured, and thus furnishes a firmer substance upon which materialization may proceed. In the processes of actualization, however, the mind, or its special faculties, is furnished with tasks calculated to exercise, unfold, develop, cultivate, strengthen, and train the faculties or faculty under treatment. Mental faculties, like physical muscles, may be fully developed only by use, exercise, and actual employment and work. They grow strong and efficient only by contact with and exercise upon the actual work for which they are designed. One must actually think in order to develop thinking power. One must actually will in order to develop willing power. One must actually perceive and observe in order to develop perceptive power. One must actually plan and invent in order to develop creative mental power. And so on along the entire list of the mental powers. Mental development, cultivation, and training always involve mental employment, exercise, use, and work. There is no exception to this rule, and any attempt to escape its results only in a disappointment. So in realizing the ideal mind, the processes of actualization are vitally important and essential, but they may be increased in power and effect and given definite direction and form by following the processes of idealization and affirmation respectively. The mental faculties are classified as follows. Number 1, faculties of thought. Number 2, faculties of feeling. Number 3, faculties of will. Thought consists of A, sensation, B, perception, C, conception, D, generalization, E, comparison, F, deliberation, G, judgment. The higher processes of reasoning being conducted along the lines of induction and deduction, respectively. Memory and imagination are also important phases of thought activities. Feeling consists of A, simple feeling, B, complex feeling or emotion, and C, desire. Will consists of A, desire will, B, deliberative will, and C, action will, in all of their various forms and phases. In the process of actualization directed toward the end of realizing the ideal mind, you should consult the best textbooks treating upon the special subjects of the particular faculties or groups of faculties, and containing scientific exercises for the cultivation, development, and training of such faculties. There are a number of such good textbooks on the market which may be found at any good bookstore. In the present volume, the full general principle and the methods of applying them are given. By applying these principles according to these methods, wonderful results may be attained in the direction of general mind development by actualization. But it will be readily seen that owing to the general nature and broad field of the present book, it is impossible to present here in extended form the details of the cultivating, developing, and training by actualization of the several sets of faculties above referred to. In fact, as we have stated, several separate volumes are required to contain such detailed presentation of these several important subjects. Therefore, we must refer to such separate and special books such students who may wish to pursue any of these special subjects in further detail. Realizing the ideal conditions or environment. To realize the ideal conditions and environment, to manifest in material objective existence and form those daydreams of the conditions and environment in accordance with the heart's desire, surely this is to work a miracle of everyday life. Yet such miracles are being performed by successful men and women on all sides in our own times, and have been so performed in the past by those individuals who were able to transform thought into action and to transmute the ideal conditions and environment into those of materialized in objective form. By the application of the principles and methods which we have asked you to consider in this book, you may reasonably expect to attain quite satisfactory results along these particular lines of manifestation. Indeed, it is considered more than probable that the similar successes of the men and women above referred to have, in a large measure, been due to the more or less unconscious application of these basic principles and the use of similar methods. Many persons who never heard these principles described, explained, or illustrated have intuitively become aware of them and have applied them by methods similar to those herein announced by us. These principles and methods were not discovered nor invented by us. They are universal and have always been employed to some extent, in some form and degree, by men. We have here merely stated them formally, explained their nature and action, and have pointed out the methods which the experience of the race has found to be the most effective. In the present usage of the terms conditions means state or situation with regard to external circumstances or environment. The environment means that which environs or surrounds, surrounding conditions, circumstances, influences, or forces. In short, conditions and environment are seen to mean such portion of the external world as affects the individual by reason of its influence upon him. If one is able to control and direct his conditions and environment, he is able to surround himself with conditions of life and details of environment in accordance with his heart's desire and with his daydreams, ideals, plans, hopes, and ambition. Our teaching is that man is not a slave of circumstances or conditions, not a prisoner to his environment. We hold, on the contrary, that the strong individuals of the race have always shown their power to modify, change, improve, transform, and transmute, at least to a considerable degree, their original environment and their original conditions of life. The history of every successful man and woman will show this to be the case, and all the teaching of our young folks is based upon such premises. The difference between the slave mind and the slave soul and the master mind and the master soul is largely the submission of the former to its environment and its conditions, and the refusal of the latter so to submit, accompanied by its determination to create its own environment and determine its own conditions of life. The miracle of realizing the ideal conditions and environment, of making the dreams come true, and of materializing one's ideal images is nonetheless a miracle because it happens to be a common and familiar occurrence. Such miracles are being performed every day. They are possible of being so performed anywhere and everywhere, now and at any time, by anyone or everyone who will put into operation the right principles and who will employ the most effective methods. We believe that the principles and methods set forth in this book contain the essence and cream of the best human thought on the subject, based upon the best experience of the race. We believe that the essential features of such principles and methods have been involved in the mental processes of the successful men and women who have conquered and recreated their environment and broken down and then recreated their circumstances in life. And now, to apply the principles and methods of our teaching to this process of realizing the ideal conditions and environment, how must you begin? Well, first of all, you must set into active operation the twin powers of ideation and will. You must start with the creation and establishment, the support and maintenance of a strong, dynamic idea, or creative ideation of the general conditions and environment which you wish to realize and materialize in objective form in the material world. You should have carefully reread and restudy what we have said to you in the section of this book entitled The Twin Manifestation of Power. You must raise the giant of ideation to the shoulders of the giant of will, and then bid the twin giants to proceed to their task.
You must pour into your ideal image the energizing and vitalizing power of the will. You must not only strengthen your ideal image by means of idealization and affirmation, but you must also strengthen and energize your steam of will by faith and confident expectation, and by keeping fiercely burning fires, the fires of desire. You will fill yourself with definite ideals, insistent desire, confident expectation, and persistent determination, so that which you are holding in your mind in idealized form shall be manifested in materialized form and activity in your world of circumstances and environment. You must establish the oneness of idea and the oneness of feeling which distinguishes the purposive will. Remember our illustration of the magic lantern with its fierce flame of desire supporting and sustaining the light of will. The light of will beats strongly and persistently upon the lantern side of the idealization, upon which, painted or photographed, the ideal image or thought form. The picture is then thrown clearly and strongly upon the screen or sheet of the ethereal substance of the cosmos, and there is reproduced in materialized form. Keep in mind this illustration, for it well symbolizes the process of materialization of the ideal, the transmutation of the ideal image of thought form into the material form. Now reread and restudy carefully the preceding section of this book entitled The Three Formulas. Read and study carefully each word of what we have there stated concerning the respective process of idealization, affirmation, and actualization. Then apply these processes to the task before you. Idealize the conditions and environment which you wish to materialize and realize in objective form. Affirm the idea by expressing it in words and in affirming its reality. Actualize the idea by acting out the part which you must play in relation to the conditions and environment which you are now proceeding to materialize according to the idealized form in affirmed statements, and proceed to perform the actual work on the mental and physical planes which are necessary to perfect the process and to accomplish the end sought. Form the clear mental image of which you wish to materialize. Vitalize and energize that image or picture by willpower, aroused and sustained by faith and desire. Project that ideal image or thought form into the ethereal substance there to be materialized. Keep the picture well defined and crystallized by positive affirmation of its reality and statements of your confident expectation of the outcome. Speak the word of its realization early and often, and with the spirit and tone of certainty. Deny out of existence the obstructing and opposing obstacles to its accomplishment. Create the mental path by actualization, and in the same way prepare the physical ground for the realization. Perform each and all of these processes earnestly, confidently, persistently, patiently, insistently, with mind one-pointed, and with every element of your being directed and devoted to the task. Finally, we wish to direct to your careful attention and consideration a certain course of procedure to be followed by all individuals wishing to achieve success and to reach the heights of attainment in any line or field of human endeavor, physical, mental, or spiritual. This course of procedure was taught, at least in principle, by some of the oldest teachers of the race. It formed a part of the inner teachings of the ancient mysteries of many lands. It is based upon common sense and also uncommon sense, upon actual experience and upon those intuitive glimpses of the higher truth, which wise men and women have acquired through the channels of the superconscious faculties of the mind. It was and is followed in principle not only by the ancient mystics and their modern successors, but also by the most hard-headed, cold-blooded, practical men of affairs of today. It is universal in its field and scope and in its application in actual practice. It is known as the master formula of attainment, and it will be presented to you in the following section of this book.
Chapter 9, The Master Formula. In the preceding section of this book, we directed your attention to the master formula of attainment, a working principle embodying the practical wisdom and extended experience of certain of the great ancient teachers and their modern followers, and which in this instruction, presented to our students in plain words, and reduced to the condensed form of a definite formula as follows. The master formula of attainment consists of 5 elements. 1. Definite ideals. 2. Insistent desire. 3. Confident expectation. 4. Persistent determination. 5. Balanced compensation. Reduced to popular terms, the master formula may be expressed as follows. You may have anything you want, provided that you 1. Know exactly what you want. 2. Want it hard enough. 3. Confidently expect to obtain it. 4. Persistently determined to obtain it. And 5. Are willing to pay the price of its attainment. Definite ideals consist of certain well-defined, clear, strong, and positive ideas, ideals, ambitions, aims, ends, intentions, and purposes concerning the objects which you desire, hope, and will to attain. They necessitate strong, clear, definite purposes to attain and achieve. This element may be stated in popular terms as knowing exactly what you want. The clearer and more definite your ideas, ideals, and purposes, the greater is the strength of your process of idealization and the more powerful your mental element of ideation. The importance of having a definite ideals and knowing exactly what you want cannot easily be overestimated. In fact, the failure to cultivate, develop, and maintain this mental state may be said to constitute one of the great causes of failure or of imperfect expression on the part of men and women. One may be, and often is, quite strong in his development and exercise of the other 4 of the elements of the master formula, but if he is lacking in the element of definite ideals, his efforts will be largely wasted and ineffective, and he will fail to attain success and full achievement in his life work. A person lacking in definite ideals, one not knowing exactly what he wants, is like a man undertaking a journey without a definite idea of his destination, his route, and the other details of his journey. Like the man in the popular song of a few years ago, he sings, "I don't know where I'm going, but I'm on my way." Or again, such a one is like a man who fires his gun aimlessly without pointing it in toward any particular object and still expects to hit something. Or once more, he is like a man trying to build a house without having in his mind an idea of what kind of structure he desires to build, how many rooms it will contain, or what will be its dimensions. Everything that man has ever succeeded in building has first existed in ideal form in his mind. Everything that he has ever succeeded in accomplishing has been attained largely by reason of a definite purpose existing in his mind and serving to direct and employ his will. The more clearly he is able to idealize his desires and purposes, the more direct will be his work of actualization. The more clearly he is able to idealize his purpose, the firmer and more stable will that purpose become. The man who wishes to climb the mountain of attainment must have not only ideals, but also definite ideals. He must not only have a general idea of which he wishes to materialize into reality, he must also have definite ideals which he wishes to take on definite, objective, real form and manifestation. Hazy, indefinite ideals result in scattered purpose and misdirected energy. The man who wants one thing today and another thing tomorrow will likely get neither. He must learn to want certain things, definite things, today, tomorrow, and the day after, if he wishes to obtain them. Shifting purpose and conflicting desires prevent that concentration and focalizing of will which is a necessary element of all successful striving and attainment. One must proceed to eliminate the less advantageous desires one by one in order to clear away the space around the great desires. By so doing, he is able to focus his attention upon the objects represented by the dominant desires and thus create a definite ideal concerning them. Many persons have found it difficult to create definite ideals because of the conflict of desires which they find within them. They want so many things that they are unable to decide just which things they want most. This being the case, it is almost impossible for them to create and maintain the definite ideals which constitute the first requisite of attainment. In that volume of the present series which is entitled Creative Power, this phase of the subject is considered in detail. If you are one who has been subjected to the embarrassment of riches along the lines of wants, and who has been unable to create a strong and effective definite ideal of that which you want most, then we feel justified in recommending to your attention the book in question. Make a mental note of this axiom. The first step on the ladder of attainment is that of definite purpose, the stage of knowing exactly what you want. Unless your foot is firmly planted on that step, you will never be able to reach the successive steps above it on the ladder. Insistent desire consists of the insisting, persisting, persevering, demanding that your desire, wish, want, craving, longing, urge to be gratified and satisfied. To insist is to take a stand and refuse to give way, to hold to something firmly and determinedly. Examples of insistent desire are had in that statement employed so repeatedly in the several books comprising the present course of instruction. Desire is the starving man desires food, as the thirst-cursed man desires water, as the drowning man desires air, as the mother desires the welfare and safety of her children, as the wild animal desires its mate. When you can and will desire like this, then you will manifest insistent desire. In the popular phrase, this is wanting the thing hard enough. Very few persons really know what it is to want the thing hard enough. They may think and say that they want the thing, even that they want it in the worst way, but they have not learned to want with the fierce hunger or terrific thirst of desire which distinguishes the living creature that wants with a force which refuses to be denied. The difference between the men who do things and get things and those of the opposite type often consists largely of the element of insistent desire, the element of wanting the thing hard enough. What we call a strong will in a man is often found to be really an insistent desire, a power of desire which demands to be satisfied, and will not rest content until it be satisfied. If you know persons of this type, as you probably do, you will remember that their flame of desire burns fiercely, and that it draws freely upon the world for its fuel. You will also remember that persons antagonizing this fierce flame, who come in contact with it, are very apt to be burnt, or at least singed by it. The more you analyze the spirit of will, the more you will see that its very essence consists of insistent desire. It is impossible for a man to have a strong will unless he first has insistent desire. Desire has been aptly spoken of as the flame which generates the steam of will. The stronger the flame, the greater the quality and power of the steam. A little self-analysis will serve to reveal to you just what an important part is played by insistent desire in the processes of willpower. You will see that every time in which you displayed great willpower, you first were filled with insistent desire. Likewise, looking backward, you will see that in cases in which your willpower failed you, your desire was weak, or lost its insistent quality. The more that you explore the regions of willpower, the more convinced will you be that insistent desire constitutes the very spirit and essence of that great mental power. To want the thing hard enough is not merely to wish it mildly or to desire to have it come to you in some degree. To want it hard enough is to want it as the wild creature wants its food and its mate, as the mother wants her young when they have strayed away from her. Insistent desire is a strong elemental urge, a primeval aboriginal force. It is the force that animates all living things in their elemental conditions, and which seems to be present even in the inanimate forces of nature. It is the power manifesting in all evolution, in all progress, in all achievement. It is a raw force, something essentially elemental and primitive. It is the force that does things, that gains things in the world of chance, change, and becoming. In that volume of this series entitled Desire Power, we have considered the subject of insistent desire in detail and have indicated scientific methods for its development and cultivation. If you feel the need of helpful instruction along the lines of insistent desire, we feel warranted in recommending to your attention the book in question. It cannot fail to strengthen you in this particular element of your character. Make a mental note of this axiom. The second step on the ladder of attainment is that of insistent desire, the stage of wanting the thing hard enough. Unless you plant your foot firmly on that step, you will never be able to reach the successive steps above it on the ladder. Confident expectation consists of the certain, confident, undoubting faith that you will obtain that concerning which you have definite ideals and insistent desire. It is the quintessence of hope-faith, the hope that is confident and the faith that knows. It is illustrated by your confident expectation that the sun will rise tomorrow morning, or that effect will follow cause, or that the sum of 2 plus 2 will be 4. When you can and will entertain this feeling toward the object of your definite purpose and insistent desire, then will you manifest confident expectation. Confident expectation is the essential spirit of faith, and faith has been termed the white magic of power. The psychological principle involved in expectant attention, confident expectation, and hopeful faith is an important dynamic energy. The principle manifests and expresses itself in practically all forms of human endeavor. The figurative statement concerning the movements of mountains by the power of faith has a far more real and substantial practical basis than is imagined by the average person hearing or reading the words. Men are moving mountains of circumstances every day, mainly by their faith power. It is an axiom of practical business that a man can sell that in which he believes the most. Every sales manager knows why many of his salesmen sell certain styles or grades of goods in far greater quantity than their fellow salesmen, and in greater proportion to other styles or grades they believe in. Those particular styles or grades, that's all. Many a man has failed to succeed in business simply because he couldn't believe in that which he was trying to sell or promote. So true is this that the efficient sales manager knows that he must first sell to the prospective salesman before the latter can sell to his customers. Likewise, he knows that if the sales force once gets the idea that a certain line of goods is not desirable, if the salesman once get to disbelieve in the goods, then that line of goods is doomed so far as that house is concerned. There is a subtle principle of psychology involved in the operation of faith power, of confident expectation and expectant attention. The mental attitude indicated by those terms is accompanied by a sharpening of the perceptive and reflective mental powers, by an increased draught operating upon the flame of desire, and by generally stiffening and strengthening of the will. Lack of faith, or worse still, confident expectation of failure and disaster, will serve to deaden the flame of desire, to weaken the will, and to paralyze and stupefy the faculties of perception and reflection. None of the mental faculties will operate to the full extent and in the most efficient manner if doubt, disbelief, and unfaith exist in the soul of that individual. To lose faith is to lose heart, and to lose heart is to lose desire and will. When such a negative mental attitude is manifested by you towards your undertakings, then, indeed, does the bottom drop out of them. Every individual does his best when he earnestly believes in the failure of the undertaking. Faith, confident expectation, and expectant attention cannot be left out of the master formula of attainment, nor may it be omitted from any other rule of practical, efficient action. When doubt, disbelief, and unfaith rise to the stage of confident expectation, or faith in the adverse outcome of your endeavors, plans, projects, and undertakings, then the negative quality is transformed into a quasi-positive one. That is to say, it passes beyond the stage in which it serves merely to retard, restrict, and interfere with the success of your plans and tasks. It becomes a power which operates actively to bring about the failure and undesirable outcome which you confidently expect and believe will result. In this way, faith power is set into reverse and your car of progress runs backward. This is no mere fanciful statement or form of superstition. It is the statement of an active, working psychological principle which manifests itself in the life of every individual who allows himself to fall into this unfortunate mental attitude. Proofs of it are to be found on all sides of the experience of others and perhaps in your own past experience. In that volume of the series entitled Faith Power, we have considered the subject of confident expectation in detail, its underlying laws and principles being explained fully, and rules and methods for its successful application being presented to its readers. We feel justified in recommending that book to your attention and study if you are one of the many who are weak on faith power, and who have not as yet learned how to set into operation the mighty forces of faith and confident expectation. Make a mental note of this axiom. The third step on the ladder of attainment is that of confident expectation, the stage of confidently expecting to obtain the thing. Unless you plant your foot firmly on that step, you will never be able to reach the higher ones of the ladder. Persistent determination consists of the persistent, insistent, unchanging, fixed, stable, tenacious, unyielding, and firm will, intent, determination, and purpose of attaining that which is fixed in your mind as definite ideals, in your emotional nature as insistent desire, and in your faith as confident expectation. It is illustrated by Disraeli's famous statement, "A human being with a settled purpose must accomplish it. Nothing can resist a will which will stake even existence upon its fulfillment," and by Buxton's equally famous expression of faith in invincible determination, "A purpose once fixed, and then death or victory." When you can and do will and determine action upon your definite ideals, insistent desire, and confident expectation in this way, in this degree, to this extent, then will you manifest persistent determination. Persistent determination is an attitude of willpower and represents the essential principle of that highly important mental faculty. It expresses the mental attitude of indomitable will, the persistent determination that you must and will accomplish that which you have set out to accomplish, and must and will succeed in obtaining that which is the object of your ideals, desire, and faith. To succeed, to accomplish, you must determinedly apply your will to the task before you, and must hold fast the cutting edge of your cold chisel of will to the work before you. Moreover, you must will to will, persistently and determinedly, that the outcome of your endeavors must and shall be successful. You will catch the spirit of persistent determination when you consider the essential meaning of the two elements composing the term persistence is tenacity, doggedness, staying quality. Determination is strength and firmness of mind, firm resolve or resolution, absolute direction to a certain end. The composite term indicates the staying, tenacious, dogged will manifesting in an absolute direction toward a set, certain, fixed purpose or end, or it may be said to indicate the fixed and tenacious aim, design, intention, resolution, determination, and will to accomplish or to reach some particular object or end. Persistent determination manifests its power in its work of studying and holding to its task the dynamic power of will. Willpower must not be scattered or dissipated. It must be held firmly to the task before it. The man of strong willpower accomplishes nothing until he is able to apply it effectively to a definite, determined direction. He must manifest his will in the spirit of steadfastness, firmness, fixed intention and purpose, positive direction, and unfailing constancy. He must set his hand to the plow and look not backward. He must persevere despite obstacles of discouragements. He must manifest steadfastness in the face of opposition and hindrances. In the volume of this series entitled Willpower, we have dealt particularly upon this particular element of willpower. We take the liberty of asking you to consider carefully the following passages from the work in question. The characteristics of persistent determination are stability, perseverance, fixedness on purpose, fixedness of purpose, tenacity, doggedness, and persistent application. Persistent determination enables you to hold your will close to its task, to hold it there firmly and continuously until success is attained and the victory is won. Success in many instances depends upon the application of persistent determination, the manifestation of the power and determination to hold on to the last. Many a man possessing the other qualities of willpower has fought a brave fight, but just before the tide turned in his favor, he has relinquished his efforts and has dropped out of the fight, defeated not by circumstances, but by his own lack of persistent determination. By studying the lives of the great inventors, Morse and Edison, for instance, you will see the utmost importance of this faculty of holding on and this spirit of never say die. In persistent determination and the voluntary action based upon it, the will deliberately chooses an end or object to be attained and then proceeds to manifest the determination in outward form and action. It proceeds to its end with intensity of purpose and directness of aim. The end must be clear, definite, and capable of distinct visualization. The effort to gain that end must call into operation the whole nature of the will and the whole force and energy of willpower. As it has been said, the whole living strength of the will must be literally hurled into it, not once or twice, but again and again until it is accomplished. The persistent determination must be real. It must be meant by you with the full power of your soul. You must not trifle with such resolutions. You must be in deadly earnest about them. Remember that the honor and integrity of your will is at stake, and that you must not bring discredit upon it. To break such a resolution is to bring shame upon yourself and your will. This is the essence and spirit of persistent, purposeful determination. Strive ever to attain, sustain, and manifest it. This is the flash of the will that can. We feel warranted in recommending that volume in this series entitled Willpower, from which we have just quoted, to your attention and study if you feel the need of strengthening, developing, and cultivating willpower. It is devoted exclusively to the consideration of the principles and laws of willpower and contains practical instruction along the lines of the development of that great mental force. Make a mental note of this axiom. The fourth step on the ladder of attainment is that of persistent determination, the stage of persistently determining to attain the thing. Unless you plant your foot firmly on that step, you will never reach the goal which you seek by means of that ladder. Balanced compensation consists of the willingness to pay the price of attainment in the shape or form of A. Untiring and unyielding, persistent and persevering work leading towards your definite end and purpose, aim, and intention. And B. The sacrifice of desires, aims, purposes, ideas, feelings, likes and dislikes of all mental or emotional states, in fact, which oppose or contradict your definite ideals and which threaten to impair, obstruct, or defeat their definite purpose. The law of compensation and balance runs through all nature and all life. One must always pay the price. Two ancient aphorisms illustrate this. Said the gods to men, "What do you want? Take it, but pay the price. And do as thou wilt, but pay the price." The man who really wants anything hard enough is always ready and willing to pay the price in work, toil, effort, and in the relinquishment of all that obstructs, diverts, or obstructs the attainment of that which he desires and wills. Balanced compensation is a great law of nature. None escape it. Nothing is free from its laws. Everything is balanced by something else. Everything must give something in order to get something. Everything must give up something in order to get more of something else. Emerson has brought out this universal principle in his great essay entitled Compensation, and the experience of every individual serves to illustrate the operation of this law. Everything must be paid for in the price of something else. Everything maintains its position by reason of balance. The wise men of the race recognize this great principle and proceed in accordance with it. The fools seek to overcome it and fail by reason of their folly. All men who have attained, or achieved anything at all worthwhile have paid the price. The price paid by them consists of various elements: work performed, persistent application, perseverance, industry, diligence. All these form a part of the price. Service rendered to others, for which one receives compensation in one form or another. This is a part of the price, and a very important part too. Other forms of the price are found in the sacrifice and renunciation of ideas, ideals, feelings, desires, ambitions, aims, ends, which are opposed to the subject or object representing the top values or prime motives of the individual. The successful man is found always to have sacrificed and renounced the lesser values for the greater ones. In the work of increasing your desire power and your willpower, you will be called upon frequently to pay the price. Your great desires demand the sacrifice of many minor desires, which have been drawing to themselves a portion of the fuel required by the great wants. By extinguishing these minor flames, you serve to give it to the great flame of desire all the fuel that is needed by it to generate the steam of will. Your willpower, operating in the direction of persistent, purposeful determination, finds that, of necessity, it must restrain, control, or even inhibit entirely certain tendencies of your nature which are perceived to work against the success of the main object of your desire and will. The will is ruthless in these matters. It unhesitatingly sacrifices many of the little things of your emotional nature for the one big thing that represents your summum bonum, or greatest good. In the 2 volumes of this series entitled Desire Power and Will Power, respectively, considerable attention has been devoted to the particular subject of feeding the great desire and great objects of will by means of deliberately starving and inhibiting the lesser desires and objects of will which are found to interfere with the successful attainment of the big things. These books are recommended to your attention in case you feel the need of further and special instruction along the lines of balanced compensation. Most persons require such instruction. Many fail by a lack of understanding of this great principle of life. Make a mental note of this axiom. The 5th and final step on the ladder of attainment is that of balanced determination, the stage of paying the price of attainment. Even though you have successfully climbed the 4 lower steps, yet you will fail of attainment if you are unable or unwilling to plant your foot firmly upon this 5th and final one. Unless you are willing to pay the price, your definite ideals, your insistent desire, your confident expectation, your persistent determination be sufficiently strong and active, then the very force of their urge will often raise you up to this final step of the ladder and will make you willing and glad to pay the price. The secret of the master formula. The master formula of attainment, which has been presented to you, is found to contain the quintessence of these dynamic forces of life and mind, known respectively as ideation, desire, faith, will, and balance. The simplicity of the master formula may at first prevent you from fully realizing its tremendous importance. We trust, however, that you will mentally masticate and digest it, so that you may fully assimilate its great truths and effective ideas. The longer you consider it, the more you analyze and dissect it, the more you synthesize its several elements into a working principle, the greater will be your appreciation of its value and efficacy. Hold fast to the master formula, for it will prove a tower of strength to you. We suggest that you visualize the diagram of it, which appears in the first portion of this book, directly facing the first page of reading matter. Make a mental picture of it, and let its statement be your working slogan. This is all that can be told you in a way of general directions. The details of the application must be worked out by yourself, but the forces which you have set into motion and activity will render this task easy by awakening your subconscious and superconscious mental faculties, which will supply you with the necessary ideas and thoughts. The actual work must be done by yourself, but these awakened and aroused forces of your being will give you the strength and the power to do the work and accomplish the task. They will awaken an unsuspected second wind of power and energy within you, and will make you equal to the task. But above all, your spirit must not weaken, and it will not weaken if you manifest the master formula of attainment of which we have just told you. You remember it: definite ideals, insistent desire, confident expectation, persistent determination, and balanced compensation. Not only will the work of the materialization of the ideal proceed in the manner which we have repeatedly indicated in this book, but you will also set into operation that wonderful law of nature called the law of attraction. This law operates in the direction of correlating you to the things serving to aid you in your work of materialization and in attracting them to you. You will find things and persons, circumstances and events gravitating towards you as you proceed. Nature's forces, once strongly set into operation, tend to attract to them that which they need for the full materialization of the idea involved in the process. The materials needed to fill in the picture, to fill the mold, to work out the pattern, all these will move toward the materializing ideal. How, you ask? Well, just as they do toward the idea in the acorn as it proceeds to evolve into the oak tree, just as they do toward the well-energized germ of life from which evolves the final form of the adult living creature. You are here setting into operation a great law of nature. Your own will come to you when you have aroused this law into activity. In these pages, you have been asked to consider some great truths, to examine some tremendous principles, to manifest some mighty powers of being, things far more potent and potential than you now even begin to recognize or realize. As you proceed to manifest these in actual experience, the wonder will grow rather than lessen. You will soon become conscious that you are in close contact with some of the most elemental and fundamental laws of nature, and of activities proceeding from that which lies back of and under nature. Herein you have had set before you some wonderful instruments and machinery of being. Use them well, but do not misuse them. Do not trifle or play with them. If you use them at all, use them earnestly and toward definite and worthy ends. As we had said, these teachings are not for weaklings nor for babes. They are for full-grown, strong men and women, the true individuals of the race. They are for the fearless and the courageous, and they will make such still more fearless and still more courageous. They will make their users stronger, better, and more efficient, the end sought by all true individuals. Those who master these principles, who recognize, realize, and manifest the truth therein contained, they constitute the very elect of the world of true individuals, which is now opening its hidden treasure to the race of strong individuals who are ready to inhabit it. The elements of these principles will constitute the stuff out of which the supermen will be made, the supermen who will inherit the earth. We have passed on this message to you, charged with the spirit of that which we wish to arouse within you. We trust that its vibrations will awaken responsive rhythms within your own being. We trust that our words will awaken in you definite ideals to achieve a certain end, insistent desire to express your inherent and latent powers, energies, and forces, and to manifest your real destiny. Confident expectation, which comes only to him or her who recognizes and realizes the truth in thought and feeling. Persistent determination, which will apply itself closely to the task of realizing your ideals and manifesting your latent and inherent powers of being and doing, and that willingness to pay the price of balanced compensation for the realization of your ideals. Above all, we trust that we have started you well on the road to the recognition, realization, and manifestation of that power from which all power proceeds, and of the focalized center of being and power, which is you, yourself, the I am I, the master self, the real self of you. If so, then you will find yourself filled with the spirit of reality, conscious of your own egohood, and intuitively and superconsciously aware of the power which is around you, under you, back of you, above you, and in you, and in which you live and move and have your being, and which is your eternal source of supply of personal power. If we have succeeded in our task, you will have advanced in the scale of conscious being and existence. Your former fear has given way to fearlessness, your former doubt to certainty, your former restless condition to poise and power, your former weakness to strength. In that case, your battle cry will be changed. You will plunge into the thick of the fight, filled with the berserker spirit of old, fearing nothing, sure of victory, shouting your battle cry of freedom, I am I can, I will, I dare, I do. You will plow your way through the ranks of the horde of ignorance and negativity and triumphantly reach the victorious heights of the Mount of Achievement. This is our message of personal power to you, the individual who has found his real self and his source of power. We trust that its seed will find lodgment in fertile soil prepared for its reception, and that in due time it will send forth strong roots and sturdy stalks, from which will unfold stems and leaves and blossoms, and finally will bear the fruit of realization and achievement of that which for so long has been your ideal. Begin today, now, to make your dreams come true, your ideals become real. You can if you will do if you dare.